Hi everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Think and Drink, organized together by Studium Generale and Study Association Asimov, where we'll be talking about the future of work, and we'll dive into the question whether we will be automated. Big question. I will be your moderator, Amber van Groenstein. Let's quickly introduce myself to start with. I'm a Master Robotics student, and together with Studium Generale, the Study Association Asimov of the Master Robotics is organizing this. 2 years ago, I did the board, and since then I just stayed involved very much because I think it's interesting, and I think topics like these are very important. And I've added a nice picture of me with a robot that you probably all know at the Heineken Brewery in the Netherlands, where they do a really cool project with Spot as well. The planning for today will be, right now I'm giving you the introduction, then we'll first go to our first speaker, Madelaine. Then we have a little pizza break, depending on when they arrive, but we intend to have them arrive then. Then we'll go to Deborah, and finally we'll have Wietse. Every speaker has a 20-minute block, but we'll split that into 4 pieces. So we have a presentation, little room for discussion, presentation, little room for discussion. So we hope to make it interactive and get everyone involved to hear what you think about the topic as well, and how the speakers are changing your thoughts on it. In the end, we have some time for open discussion, and we'll close, but then the drinks and snacks are still available to chat afterwards. So you don't have to run out of the library immediately. So I want to tell a little bit about why we're organizing this, because this is a question, like the whole automation of job markets is a question that has been on my mind for a long time. Because I remember feeling very awkward about it when I, for example, was working at Heineken, where I was basically automating people's jobs. And then sometimes someone comes up to you and they want to talk about it, and then you feel like that's a bad thing, you know? Because I have a passion for my work, robotics, automation, but they also have a passion for their works, and those two don't always go perfectly well together. So that's why we need to be very careful and responsible about how to make sure that we only automate the parts of people's jobs that we want to have automated. That's why we think it's a very important topic. I also had very positive replies, by the way, on the whole job automation thing. So there's positive sides and negative sides, and we'll go over all of them. And to see where people are right now at the beginning of the event, we have a little Slido, so you can take out your phone and scan the QR code, and then we hope that it works. I checked it a second ago, and then it still worked, so should be fine. I'll give you a second to scan it. Okay, and then we'll go to the first question, and if you haven't scanned it, it's still up there. And we wanted to ask you what you like about the jobs you have right now, or your future jobs, where you see yourself working later in robotics. There are so many components, and you can add small stuff, you can add bigger stuff. What are the parts of your job that you really like and you would like to keep doing? What are the things that give you energy, you know? There are things in your job that you like, there are things in your job that I don't like taking out the trash. If that could be automated, please do so. I see people typing. A lot of people typing. That's good to see. Yeah, technical challenges. That's, I guess, why we are at the TU Delft. We like solving challenges, solving problems, analyzing problems. I see an emoji. I didn't know that was possible. Like what automation can do. Ooh, people are typing a lot. That's good. Creativity. That's something as well. We'll collect these all later and can share it later afterwards if people want to look back at it. There's also an AI tool in this Slido thing that clusters them. So you can see on top the clusters. It's a nice connection with the AI topic of today. Yeah, interesting research, making things, being creative, innovation. Is there anyone that would like to add a bit about the topic that they just entered? About what things of your job you would not like to have automated? You can just raise your hand if you feel comfortable sharing. There's no pressure though. This is a safe space. It's also okay if you don't want to share. That's why we have the Mentimeter. So also people that don't feel comfortable speaking up immediately feel comfortable with like sharing the things that they like about it. But there are also a lot of things that you probably don't like about your job. What would be the things that you would like to have automated? If it's correct, you can see the right poll now that shows the things that you would like to have automated. So the things that you dislike about your job. These can be very small things, very big things. Documentation, yeah, I kind of expected that one. People don't. I really like documenting actually. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of things. Bug fixing. I also kind of like bug fixing. That's the thing. Like people like different things, you know. And that also is a big challenge in this. Like some people like something very much, and then we're gonna automate that, and then, yeah, people have different things that they want and what not to have automated. Repetitive floor plan design. That's very specific. But I can imagine that repetitive work is often heard to not be the most. There are already 3 things that mention repetitive. Yay, AI tool. Pinging people too many times so they remember to do something. Yeah, you can actually already automate that. You have WhatsApp APIs, you can make a loop. Free tip from me to you. My computer is not about to restart. You didn't see that, right? Good. Okay, is there anyone that would like to explain a bit more about what they just entered? Something that they really dislike about their work or the work that they will be having and how they're going to automate that maybe? You don't have to. It's okay. We'll have more interaction. Yes, we have someone. Perfect.
So in general, I have a lot of teaching duties and something that comes up. I'm part of the mathematics faculty and we're part of Prime that gives math courses to everyone. And grading is a recurring extensive duty. So courses are for all the first years in the university, and then you have to grade in some shape or form 400 exams or of the likes. And nobody is enjoying it, and it's consistently something that comes up in automation. Personally, I do think that you should, or that grading time is proportional to the complexity of the assignment, more or less. So just trying to automatize grading and hence don't like just put any kind of assignments might backfire on the student's load. But talking with lecturers here at Delft, grading is the recurring answer.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of teachers will agree with you, and it's a difficult one because you don't want to automate it too much and only have multiple choice tests, because you also want to have like quality testing, of course. So that makes it difficult. Okay. Thanks for all the answers. Once again, we'll share them later if you're interested in seeing a bit more about what people answered. But we can see, as the AI tool has given us, that a lot of people mention repetitive tasks. I think we'll hear more about that later as well. We had one more question, because automation is not a new thing. Already a lot of things are being automated. So what are things in your work or your future work that are already being automated? And these can be very small or very big. It doesn't have to be, you don't have a packaging line at home. We don't expect you to answer that, but I could be. At your work, of course, you have packaging lines. But also small things in your day-to-day work. Maybe you have like automatic replies on emails or stuff like that. Feel free to think outside of the box. See people typing already. That's nice. Autocomplete, yeah. Copilot, ChatGPT. Reports. Grammar checking. Yeah, it's kind of funny to think about the fact that grammar checking, like a few decades ago, people didn't have grammar checking, you know. You just send it to your mom and she checks for grammar mistakes. If you're lucky with your mom. Email reply nudges, yeah. That's also couples nicely back to earlier when we asked like what people found annoying about their works. Pinging a lot of people. data analysis, kind of basic coding. True, yeah, more and more is getting automated than that. Okay, I see a few more people typing, so I'll wait a little bit longer. But then we're going to go on to the first speaker to tell us more about all of these. But now you're already warmed up, so you know what you want to have automated and what not. Redundant mail responses to be nice to your boss and colleagues, yes. Thank you, ChatGPT. Replying to shy. I hope that these are not bots replying. Because then we're stopping with the Slido. We're doing it in person then. Yeah, I'm going to cut it off. Okay, let's continue with the first speakers. And I'll give the word to Madelaine Ley.
Okay, I think I have
oh yeah, you have the microphone.
I have the microphone. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me and for organizing this, Amber, with the introduction and everything.
Your clicker.
Oh, I don't need it.
Oh, you don't have slides, of course.
Here we go. It's just a notebook with some pen notes. Okay, so I'm in the position of starting us off with the speakers, and I'm a philosopher. So I was thinking there's so many, and I work with robotics and robot ethics, there's so much to talk about with the future of work and robotics. And I have to trust that we're going to get a little bit more into that with the other speakers, because I want to start off with good philosophical practice, which is questioning the questions that we ask. Okay, so the question is, will I be automated? Will I be replaced? This question, you know, it's the title of the event, but will I be automated? Will I be replaced? This is a question around the dinner table with your friends, politicians' podiums, newspapers. This kind of language and this exact question is something we're familiar with. What does this tell us about the moment we're in and the kind of things, the questions we're really yearning to have answered? Because when I see the question, will I be automated? Or will I be replaced? This question, it should break your heart. It should move you. It is not a small thing to ask that. How do we come to that? It means that we feel some sort of a sense of dehumanization and alienation from our own particularity, that we would even come to question the fact that we could be automated, or that you two might replace each other. I won't do it for everyone, but you are unique and amazing, and it's an honor that you're here. You are also unique and amazing, and it's so unlikely that you're here. It's so unlikely that all of us are here. Time had to, all the possibilities of all of time layered up and accumulated so that your two parents made you, and then you arrived, and then you came to this university. Like, this is so extraordinary. And when we're asking, will I be automated or will I be replaced, we're losing this sense of wonder and sense of our own uniqueness and our own specialness. And if you are now thinking, I am so unique and special, I will find my niche and make a website and brand it and get a job. That's not what I'm suggesting right now. Because that can happen. It's like our own uniqueness and specialness just gets like swallowed up by this capitalist machine that keeps going. I'm not saying do special branding and get a job. I'm saying we need to tap back into a reverence for humanity. And humanity is this person and this person and this person. It is particular. I have to tie this up so quickly. We only have 5 minutes for each piece. I want to introduce you to this idea that's emerging, and you might see more and more, called the meta-crisis. The meta-crisis is this idea where we have, okay, so we have like a political crisis, we have a job crisis, we have a climate crisis, all of these crises around, and the people who are in this discussion of the meta crisis saying that there's some sort of underlying or overarching or all throughout crisis of the way that we're looking at the world. Usually people say that there's a sense of separation, that we're losing our sense of connectedness with each other and with the world. And that's what's giving rise to all these crises that we say are particular, or, you know, it's over here or it's over here. And what I want to call us down to is this underlying loss of wonder, loss of reverence, and loss of this sense of humanity. So I think I have to stop there. I'm supposed to ask a question. And my question is actually just, does it resonate with you? Is there something where you feel like you've conflated your sense of identity or sense of self with your economic involvement, with your job? Is there something where you've merged your sense of worth and sense of self with the work that you do, how much money you make? And is that something you see in yourself? Maybe you see it in your parents, in your culture, or at the university. So it's a big question about the meta crisis. Yeah.
Thanks. Staat ie aan? Thanks. Thanks. Let's first start with a big applause for Madelaine and her first part of the talk. Is there anyone who would like to comment on the question that she just posed? It's a big question. It's a lot of questions. So yes.
First, say thanks for the presentation, and that I do believe in my life with my parents, they tie up a lot of their self-worth in their jobs, and I think that's natural when you have the majority of your time, you know, if you work 40 hours a week, is spent at a job. And how would you suggest we go about separating our self-worth from our job or career?
Yeah, I think, so that's what the next 5 minutes is on, is to acknowledge that you actually do work. And you spend a lot of time working, so we'll talk about that in a moment. But I think that's where we have to be so careful and just slow down and pause and say, okay, we do have to work, we live in this economy and that's how it is, to pay our bills. But first, that's why I think it's like a deep philosophical piece, that your sense of self and your work are not the same thing.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I immediately think like, oh, every time I introduce myself, I'm like, oh, I'm Amber. I'm a robotics student, you know. But you're so much more than only your profession or your studies. And if you automate something as critical as your job or your studies, then what's left to introduce yourself with? I guess.
Well, I was just reading. You know this. I think it might be especially North American, which I'm from Canada, and so that's very cultural. But that people will, you'll always say like, what do you do? And I was reading, I can't remember who it was, but they were just so fed up with this, and they started just responding like, about what? Like, about breakfast? Like, what you're really asking, again, coming back to these questions, what you're really asking is, what do you do about money? Like, what do you do for your work? Which is very specific. Yeah.
Cool, thanks. Is there anyone else who has a burning thought? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your talk. I have a bit of a counter question, because historically you don't see a lot of individualism throughout history, and I wonder, you just called it a crisis, but aren't we more seeing an emergence of this self-identity still?
Are you saying is this a new thing? Yeah, I think, well, it's interesting. Again, I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the second bit. But yes, I think that it's particular to, I should have said this, a specific culture and a specific history where there is this sense of self as an individual, as And what I'm going to talk about in a moment is that while we are, what I said, like unique and special, I really mean that. And that uniqueness is all entangled with a network of possibilities that from which one could even emerge. And so we are not separate and not individual, and our relationships are what even make us possible. And we can't get away from that. Yeah. Thank you.
I see one more. That's the last one, and then we'll go to the second part, since I see there are a lot of questions that immediately pursue that.
So I think that the question of will I be automated and how I feel or why I feel about that does change a lot on how you're asking. I think, I mean, we're in a technical university with a lot of AI research and with a lot of robotics research.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the question here is, will I be doing the automating for someone else? I do feel like the most of people that answer, I don't know, with some anxiety, will I be automated, don't think of their jobs as something that identifies them, but as a means for survival. And historically, like the effects of automation that already happened in the Industrial Revolution, for instance, like don't necessarily map one-to-one for, I don't know, I was automated, hence my job is no longer necessary, hence I can work less and get more benefits. It doesn't work like that exactly if you're the one being received. So I think it's sometimes less existential of existential crisis or more existential in the sense of how do I keep existing around?
What was the last part?
The question is existential, not this induces an existential crisis in me, but more existential of how do I keep existing or how do I keep my slot in the system?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, that's a really good transition into the second part. And I think, and just that point is, just before I move into it, is also what Amber brought up at the beginning too. So we're at different places. So sometimes at the technical university, we're maybe participating in the automation of other people's work. I think the language is important here, of automation, not of people, of people's work. And then sometimes, I think recently, I don't know, in the last couple of years, there's been things that have sort of surprised me. You think, I don't know, for example, like when growing up, it was like, well, doctors and lawyers are so special and unique and amazing. Like their work is so particular and can't be automated. And then you see so much of that work being taken over with AI. And so I think there's a lot of surprising pieces to this puzzle. But I'm going to go into the second part because all three questions touched on it. Okay, so my note have disappeared here. Just a second. Okay, so we are unique, as I said, but there's another piece, which is that we're interconnected. We emerge from particular realities and possibilities that were taken up to bring us here. There are things we know, probably in this room. If you don't know them, you know something else, and if you don't know them, you're about to know them. In Foxconn in China, in factories where iPhones are built, there are safety nets to stop people from killing themselves. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, there are horrific atrocities to the environment to extract cobalt for batteries, as well as absolutely horrific working conditions. ChatGPT was originally trained in Kenya by workers who were working extremely long hours for less than $2 an hour and looking over some 700 text images a day of sort of traumatic and violent of text and sort of sorting through whether or not this could be usable in the system, much to their mental health problems. We know that the data centers are the energy that's used for data centers and the water use is immense. We know that the e-waste sites, the World Health Organization in 2018 comes out to find that has huge effects on people's fertility, miscarriages, unable to get pregnant, these sorts of things with people who live around these e-waste sites. We know this at this university, and yet we sometimes push it aside. There's a tendency when we're talking about robotics and AI and automation to talk about it like it's something new. It's something we're on the cutting edge of. There is a wonderful technology historian, I suppose I'd say, named Virginia Eubanks, and she writes this book, Automating Inequality. It's excellent. And she, at the beginning, she says, a lot of the technology conversations, they focus on what's new here, what's new here. And I hope we do get into that because it's not an unimportant conversation, of course. But she asks, what's old? What are we continuing? What are we continuing? Automation, robotics, AI, with those examples that I just listed. Well, we're continuing slavery. We're continuing colonial habits of extraction and power dynamics and violence. This seems to be, I think, part of what I call the meta-crisis. In maybe closer to Delft, we have, maybe like where I'm from in Canada, for example, there's a loneliness epidemic and there's social media anxiety, all these sorts of things. We all know them. So why do we keep going? Why do we keep going? I ask myself this all the time, like, why can we push this aside? I think there's lots of answers. I hope we do come up with them in the discussion. One of them, I think, is what I call the tyranny of efficiency. Everything needs to be efficient. Everything needs to be optimized. Why? Underneath that, I think, this grueling, like, forceful sense of scarcity. That what a Dutch researcher calls as the zeitgeist narrative. So I forget her name and I need to remember her name, but she did interviews with a bunch of Dutch companies and she was noticing that they all said the same thing, and I found this in my own interviews. They said, well, we have to get robots, we have to use AI, because if we don't, then we're not gonna stay competitive and we're gonna become obsolete. These are two words that come up all the time, like competition and obsolete. She calls this a zeitgeist narrative. It's a sense that, well, everybody's doing it, so we have to do it too. That's when we feel that urgency and that panic set in, I think is a great opportunity, an invitation to slow down and take a breath and just decide, is this really a panic moment or can we do something else? Maybe something a little bit more creative. There is I'll finish off with this. There is a wonderful philosopher. His name is Bayo Akomolafe. He started this movement called post-activism. And post-activism, the tagline, if there is such a thing, he says, the times are urgent, let us slow down. I'm not sure that we're in a specifically, like, this moment. We always like to think that this moment so particular, so special, so, like, you know, everything's gonna change in this moment. I don't know about that. I don't know if it's more unique than another time. But it does always, there's always an opportunity to slow down a little bit and just sort of ask, what's the next step we want to take? Because we're always taking a step. What is it? If we can just add a little spaciousness into that next step, we might see that another way is possible. We might ask, do we need AI in this situation? Do we need robots in this situation? And really, you know, answer that honestly. There is space for possibility. And I think we need to be bold enough to take that space. You all, I think a lot of you are students probably, or working at the university or in engineering. What you do matters. As was already discussed, you have 40 hours a week, let's say, maybe, more or less. It is a lot of time, and probably gonna work for several decades. It is a lot of time. You can be bold in what you want to give your time to, what you want to give your smarts and your energy to. And I think that if there is something about this moment. It really calls for courage and it calls for boldness. So there we go. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Oh, can you hear me? Great. Thank you so much for the interesting talk. Are there any people that have questions for Madelaine so far? Seeing all the things that she just said. Or maybe still about like the previous question about work and identity being very intertwined and how we deal with that if we would be automating parts of our jobs.
Or also maybe do you also see the zeitgeist narrative? Because I know I find that in my own work too, like on your projects maybe, or I think funding's always like this. It's like you have to make like a big urgent problem and then you offer the solution for it. Seems like, or maybe there's a moment where you've thought, oh, I don't know if we really need this technology, but we're doing it anyways. I see some nodding. Yeah?
So I have an example from autonomous vehicles. So European Union has recently stopped, decreased the funding for automation, especially in European context. So it was once a hype to do everything related to autonomous vehicles. Maybe US is still doing that, but European Union has decreased the funding. So I think it's a good realization by European Union. So there are more urgent needs because I work in transportation, so there are more other needs which we have to address, and that's the urgency of the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi.
Yeah. So very interesting point about the identity thing, and so one perspective to see it is that if AI will be there and everything will be effective, probably we will be able to do the same amount of work in less amount of time, maybe 5 days of work in 3 days in a week. And then we are left with more time to think about life in general, to think about what really excites us, what we really want to pursue, and to then create identity around those things. Because currently, if I see, or if we see that people are so busy on social media or in competition and everything, that they just do not have that time to think about anything else than what is going around. So they don't have time for introspection, they don't have time for retrospection, and probably AI could provide that opportunity in terms of time, ample time to think about those things, and also to help each other in the world, and how to make the world a better place by solving the complex problems like why countries are at war, what we can do. So we really need time for those things, and probably technology can help us in providing that time.
I think this is something you hear about a lot. I do philosophy of technology. You hear this narrative a lot, and always, I think, if you ever hear something temporal, I mean, like about time in conversations about technology, pay attention. And one of the things that happens is that there's this idea that if we we need more time, so we'll get a technology, and then we'll have more time to do other things. Historically, this is just not worked out. The idea itself is not, I don't know, not necessarily wrong, but how it gets played out, it rarely works like this. A technology will happen, for example, there's a wonderful book, More Work for Mother, and a feminist historian of technology finds that there's always this idea that if you have the washing machine, and then it'll give you more time, and it just turned out that then the women just had more expectations at home and just sort of amped things up. I was thinking recently about online meetings. It's like, well, you don't have to walk. You can do your meetings, and then you'll have more time. Well, then what happened? Everybody is booked back to back to back to back with no bathroom breaks. So now we need to have something called a bio break. I don't think it's a wrong idea. I am very suspicious of how it gets implemented, because history has not shown it to really work that way. And then also, why the technology. If the technology is for efficiency and often for profit for some people, it doesn't work out like that. But maybe. Yeah.
I see another question on the right.
Thank you. I really like the idea of courage, but I wonder who has the courage, but also the means to make these changes happen.
Oh.
So, I mean, it's, I guess, either out of the position of strength, but then for those in strong positions, it might already work quite well. So why would they change? And the ones in crisis may not have the means then to really bring up that courage or time.
Yeah.
Time and money also.
Yes. I have written down in my notes somewhere, bills. 3 underlines, exclamation points everywhere. Yes, bills and paying your rent and also, as Amber was mentioning at the beginning, enthusiasm for your work and ambition in your career. All these sorts of things make us want to keep working on these projects. I think, again, if we slow down, there are lots of things you can do. I'll give a personal example. In my work, in my PhD, I was working on these projects and just wasn't sitting right. I was like, I just don't really feel like we need more robots for retail so we can get our stuff faster. Like, this is not really what I want to contribute to. But I was really scared because my PhD is funded by a Dutch retail company. So then I thought, like, what, I know I have academic freedom, but do I really have academic freedom? And I went through a little crisis, and my own little part of the meta crisis, and then I just wrote. I dropped out of several papers, and a lot of people said, not a lot, a few people who are way higher up said, "Are you like what? They're almost published. Don't do that because then they won't be on your CV." And I did it anyways, and it's worked out. And now I've written things that I feel good about. And I'm saying that from a very privileged position in terms of, like, I'm in a PhD on a contract for a certain time. I'm not saying that everyone can do that, but I bet you a lot of people who are researchers, if you can have the courage, if you can do a lot, actually. And you can choose what you contribute to. Though I understand bills are hard. Yeah.
Nice. I think everyone saw the pizzas arriving on the side. So let's give one more round of applause for Madelaine and her talks.
Thanks.
And she will still be here for the rest of the talks and also afterwards with the discussion if you have any more questions to ask. For now, let's dig into the pizzas on the side and continue at 50-ish. 7 minutes is enough for pizzas. Okay, while the final people get their stuff, you can still walk over there and get a drink or a slice of pizza if you want. That's I won't. Yeah, no one will tackle you. It's a free country. But I'll start with the introduction of our second speaker. Our first speaker, Madelaine, was from TU Delft, and our second one is as well. But she has a bit of a different background. She came from that's a positive thing, I think. She comes from biology, where she studied baboons. But because of her system engineering mindset and way of thinking, she did end up at TU Delft. So I'm very hyped for her perspective on this whole thing. So yeah, you have the clicker. The floor is yours.
What do I do? I just
you click.
Remember which. Oh, look at that. Okay. So just to make a segue from what you just said, I would say, well, first of all, I want to comment before that. Turns out that earlobes are an amazing real estate for technology. I have 3 technologies. One are my glasses, second are my hearing aids, which are the most amazing, and the third is this microphone. So whoever managed to use ears in creating tech, kudos for them. But the segue from your talk is that what we did is actually leverage a crisis in the kind of work that we do, which is most sectors that have to do with physical work are experiencing labor shortages. So that's a real crisis that drives them to me. But the first thing we tell them is to throw efficiency out the window. And lo and behold, they almost listened to us. Where they would hire one PhD student, we asked them to hire 5. We're just now finishing a round of hiring 5 postdocs for a nursing project in Erasmus MC. They're all from different disciplines. Where they ask us to solve things quickly, we say, well, really, to change the future of work, you probably need 10 years. And they say, yes, but can you do something at the beginning slightly short? And we say, yes, but we really want to continue. And they actually managed to comply with us. So I think part of what's allowing this to happen is a history of failure of working in other ways. So companies that we work with have a long history of trying to automate things and have a lot of failure gathering up, so they managed to do that. So I want to use this to give you a thing and to ask you, what do you think this is? Can you even see? There are all kinds of lines here. Can you imagine what that could be? Scribble of some sort. Going across, so maybe there's time along here, or it could be a spatial arrangement. There are some lines over here. But what this really is a shift of a nursing at a hospital in Erasmus. And that's the description of where they walk and where they go on the floor of their hospital unit during the day. This is a more analytical version of that, but it captures the same information. Just a few items. These are nurses in an oncology department at Erasmus MC. And critical thing of what they do is see patients. We can't take pictures of patients, so you can imagine a patient sitting here. They do have what's called a cow, a computer on wheels, that does some things for them, but they usually leave it outside the room when they go into a patient. They have to do things like help people turn over and make beds and things like that. They have to travel long distances to get supplies, and they even have sometimes scooters to help them do that. And they have to do a lot of reporting. And if you look at their day, you'll see things, break communication. If you think that a nurse is doing direct patient care, this is the one part where they do patient care. Patient material-related tasks, medicine-related tasks, dossier writing, organizational activities, interaction with other partners. So this is a shift in the life of a nurse. And the other environment that I want you to consider is baggage handling at Schiphol Airport. Here you see a similar kind of activity of drawing out kind of a journey map of their tasks, but we're showing you how we do it. We go and shadow them, we bring a lot of people, then we interrogate them, we bring them to tell us, did we actually capture it right? And you could see some familiar things of what baggage handlers have to deal with, especially flipping over, taking things out of carts, putting things on carts. So they're also important to understand that baggage handling comes at peaks and troughs during the day. And in Schiphol Airport, the biggest peak is between 7 and 10 a.m. And even though they may have some lifting aids, like this guy is using a lifting aid, during that peak time, there's so much baggage that baggage handlers usually feel that it's more efficient to do things physically. So actually, my first question for you is, if you see yourself as a hospital nurse, oh shit, I probably crossed. You probably see half my body at some of these things, that's okay. What would you agree, as a nurse or as a baggage handler, that could, would, should be automated? So that's my first question. I don't quite know how to handle it, but go.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let's start with a big applause for the first part of the presentation. And then if anyone has something they want to say about this question, they can just raise their hand and I'll come running over to you with a microphone so people can hear you. Yes.
Hi, thanks for this presentation. So I would like to comment on baggage handler, because it depends on the level of the practice. So if a baggage handler is more expert, so he would like to be automated in his own work without using any external machine. So to
But
become...
what if his work would be automated?
No.
His whole work would be automated? There'd be a robot going in, capping a bag, knows how to do it, do the whole thing? Is that what you're imagining?
No,
Okay.
I'm not imagining that.
Okay.
He would not like that, he or she would. But what I'm saying is that as he becomes expert, he himself becomes automated. So his work is like more of, he doesn't really worry about what the weight of bag is. He will just lift and throw it. So it's about the experience. The more he
might become an operator of a robot rather than doing some of the lifting himself. Okay. Any other ideas?
For the nurse, the document writing.
Go ahead. What did I didn't hear it?
The writing the documents.
Like for the nurses?
Yeah.
That would be really nice, right? But imagine that what gets righted in the documents a lot of times is something very specific about a particular patient that they saw because they spent a lot of time with that patient, or read it. And if documents, and I'm not sure what part you think of would get automated in writing the documents, maybe speech to text, or maybe something where the nurse is still spending time with the patient, but some of the things that get done might help, right? Especially knowing that doctors have terrible handwriting, right? It would be nice if some of that got automated. But it's not clear that then when a doctor comes to, let's say, a chart, and a big significant part of it was automated, and the nurse that's there may lose connection with some of the information that was there. It's really hard to evaluate, right? What bits of information are really helpful, and when actually it really helps to automate, because maybe someone on the shift before saw something, wrote it in a note, didn't have time to pass it on to the next nurse, but it's in the notes and the doctor could find out. So you can imagine a lot of scenarios, right, where that could be a plus or a minus.
If no one has a question, I have a question.
Yes.
When you work with the people in like the nursing and the baggage handling, how do they feel about being a part of this process, about being a part of automating their own jobs?
The nurses' main thing is they say what they would like, and we say the future of work, we say for a just, viable, meaningful future of work, not just any future, right? Nurses would say, we like to spend quality time with patients. So if you could automate something that would allow us to spend quality time with patients, that would be great. And before even taking another breath, they say, but if the hospital figures out that we have more time with patients, they'll probably just give us more patients. So they're worried about that their workload will increase, even though we're giving them automation that might be bringing them something reasonable.
Thank you.
Going to continue then?
Unless there are
any other
questions or comments.
And they could come up again. There's time.
Okay. Now we can continue.
So, what happens? How do we even address the issue of what to automate? So first of all, how do we find out what nurses do? You saw that journey map. Here is sitting around the table, trying to, so we shadow people, write down what they do, diagram, but then we invite them back, talk to them again. Maybe we try and figure out all kinds of puzzles about the work that they're doing, but there's a lot of that kind of work, so we try to figure out what nurses do. But then we also try and introduce them to what robots can do. And if you look carefully, you might see Micah there in the corner doing that. So it turns out that what happens when you go to a workplace, even with people that are pretty well experienced and knowledgeable, their image of what a robot can do is some humanoid thing that is going to do stuff instead of them. And one of the things that we like to do is to shift from talking about just robots to robotic capabilities. So not just think about, oh, a robot is going to replace me, but I do reaching in my work. I do cycling. I do writing. I do functional things. And we could start to, by giving them an example, to actually touch an arm and to say, look, this arm can move. It can pick up stuff. It can move with nice compliance, right? So just to engage them so they can start to see parts of their work in different eyes. So that's also a big part of trying to decide what would replace you. Sorry, I'm in the wrong direction. Here is another project. It's not baggage handling, but it's also with KLM. KLM does engine repair. And this is another task where you could see on the left, they repair one blade of a turbine. And Micah was involved in this project both as a postdoc and now as a professor. And they spend a lot of time. It's very hard work to do. So there's physical stress, and the level of expertise is pretty high. You develop a level of expertise over years, and then you have to think about how to teach a novice. And what happened during COVID, a lot of people left, not a lot of people came back. So there's also a sense of knowledge getting lost and quality of work. And one of the things that Micah and I don't know if you recognize Nicky Moll, he's a PhD student in HRI, had the idea that maybe a KUKA arm could participate in this work. So not replace it, but actually maybe hold the tool so that the person doesn't have to spend so much effort. And maybe there's some kind of shared control. Either you just direct the robot and the robot provides the force, or maybe the robot also helps you keep some directionality and analysis. But the way to actually figure that out is to come and talk, to have a lot of conversations around the table, to bring a KUKA arm to the place and to see how workers respond, right? So it's not just people sitting in the back developing kind of robot and saying, okay, now your job is gone. So that's another way to think about it. And then what's new about robots in baggage haul? So Schiphol actually is pretty advanced in trying to put lifting aids in the baggage halls to more or less degree. What are we going to do with them? The jury's still out. We've just been working with them for 8 or 9 months, and they don't really want us to talk about the actual ideas. But similar kind of process of really engaging workers over a long period and doing things. So just a couple of comments on this. One thing that we notice right now is, there's a lot of interest in artificial intelligence, and we're kind of focusing on embodied robotics. And if you look at the history, you see that artificial intelligence started very disembodied, playing chess and figuring out all kinds of things. And robotics, physical robots, started out being very stupid. The room maybe was smart, but the robot itself was stupid. And we're coming now to a point where we think more of cognitive robotics and cobots. But to introduce cobots or cognitive robotics into the workplace is still very new and contentious. But this is kind of where we see ourselves. And as you can imagine, it's a pretty wicked problem. I'm just going to throw some stuff at you. So wicked problems have all kinds of things there, difficult to figure out what they're going on. There is no end in the timeline. It can be very specific and idiosyncratic. And we actually use a transdisciplinary approach. And this is Mieke van der Beer-Brewer. She's actually a professor in her last month at IDE. But before she is leaving, she managed to impart a lot of knowledge. And what she's trying to say here is that if we really want to solve a problem, first of all, we need a lot of different approaches: empirical approach, pragmatic, normative, values, and we have to address all of them, but not just in academia, also in other non-academic ways of knowing, and also more experiential knowledge. How does it actually feel to do things? And she imagines that the process that we go through is actually this kind of loop that also allows for emergent knowledge, and that's where taking a long time and not putting efficiency on the top is really critical. And how do we do it? We bring a lot of people together. These are 5 different universities in the Netherlands. There are 35 people. We're now in the 3rd round of trying to apply for funding for these people, but we're already a community. And the way we approach the working issue is that we say, well, what we're really interested in is the worker-robot relationship. Right? We want that to be good and just and viable. And where do we find those relationships? If you go to look for them someplace, not in an academic lab, you usually find this triangulation. You find technology, you find workers, and it's always in an organizational context. And the organization a lot of times is ignored, especially by HRI. They think, oh, I study human and robot. But actually, who allows you to study that? right? You did a study with, I don't know which retailer, but you got permission to be there, right? So then we think, let's just start from that triangulation. What can we say about it? And we also know that there are specific disciplines that actually focus on one of these nodes, and we try and bring all the disciplines kind of to the same table. Design typically sees themselves as connecting some of the dots, so they're also there. And what I wanted to do with you is to do an exercise on this triangulation, but just to tell you what we usually do is we come into this kind of environment and we try and say, okay, organization people, what issues do you see? Workers, what are issues for the workers? What are issues for the technology? And as they start talking about issues, we realize that we have a lot of knowledge gaps. And to these knowledge gaps, we are willing to bring a lot of expertise. So the four in black are we always use. So robotics, design, organizational change, and work psychology. And we always have workers. So here it's a KLM project, so we have KLM workers. We have representatives of the organization, KLM and Schiphol. And then we may have specialty domains. If we're looking at baggage handling, operations research is really important. Ergonomics is really important. So I call this the polygon of expertise. And what I want to do with you is to think about the nursing and the baggage handling, and now to say, what can we do from each of these nodes to make for a better future? How can we empower workers? How can we get to the point where we have new robotic capabilities? And how do we allow organizations to make change? So that's my second question for you. And I don't know if we still just want to do it in discussion style or...
Let's first, again, do a bit of an applause. Thanks for the great presentation. I think, for me at least, I can only speak for myself, it made it very clear to see some applications and some real examples of the future of work, I guess. So the question, describe your future job. Is there anyone who would like to comment on that? Like the robotic capabilities that you want to be working with?
Or you could even share if there's robotic capabilities that you're working on now and you could imagine what they would do in certain sectors. That would also be anything that kind of can reflect on that. And especially if you haven't thought about an organizational perspective, what kind of company, what kind of organization would need to allow this to actually take place?
Once again, it's a safe space. We won't judge you.
No right, no wrong answer.
Something that I also found insightful, by the way, was that you broke down the daily process of the workers in a way. When I was preparing for this whole event, I thought, I'm going to make some nice DALL-E images of robots in the future doing people's jobs. And every time you search for stuff like that, you get a humanoid in a position where a human used to be. It's there was this one image of a robot sitting behind a laptop and typing on the keyboards, which makes zero sense. Yeah. So it's nice to see how it can work in completely different ways. Yeah.
It's almost as if you say, would a robot replace my job? What job? What part of the job? What task? What would help? What would not? Is there anything right now that is already partially automated that works or doesn't work well? Part of what we say to companies that come to us, and they come to RoboHouse, to the field lab that is about robotics, and the first thing we typically say to them, we're not sure we're going to give you a robot. Once we agree to learn together and do together, maybe robots is not the best answer, but it's going to be roboticists who tell you that, right? So it's not without the knowledge, right? Or without the kind of co-creation of knowledge.
Yes. Am I allowed to ask?
You already have a mic.
I have a microphone on. I was just wondering about, and this pertains to the third part, in the nursing example, the nurses, it's don't tell the hospital. So I'm wondering about what kind of organization, and it's the same question that I had too, was asked of me, is this idea that if we have the technology, then we'll have more time for this. So what sort of other pieces do we need in place to have that happen?
It's very good. Didn't bring, we actually mapped out the kind of activities we did in a 3-month pilot on that. And really what we're discovering is that the trick behind that is to realize that the decision making is made by the whole system, and not just by us. We're not someone you contract and then they give you a result. We kind of work with our stakeholders to say we are co-creating knowledge. So then the most important moments, and we always have a core team of researchers that are working all the time with a core team, let's say, of nurses. So they have very intimate knowledge of each other, and they also spend so much time together that they develop trust. And actually the nurses typically figure out, oh my God, I didn't realize that I spend so much time doing this or that, or that I always do detours and I don't really work efficiently. When you have that trust, and then you bring all the stakeholders together in meetings where they're all there, then the whole system is hearing these things. Managers hear for the first time the way workers are describing their work. The managers tell us, oh, we always ask the nurses what would help their work, but a nurse doesn't, a person who does so many things implicitly and automatically doesn't necessarily know. But going through this process with them now kind of flattens a little bit of the power relations. There's listening, and there is appreciation for the intensity in which we work. So I think that really helps. And the history of failure of other things is very important. Anything else?
I see a hand in the back.
Can you hear me? Oh. I feel like asking what kind of robotic capabilities you'd like within your job is kind of the wrong question to ask.
Can you speak just a little louder?
Oh,
yeah.
Is this good?
Yeah.
I was saying, I feel like asking what kind of robotic capabilities you would like in your job might be the wrong question to ask. Because, for example, in the nursing, the example of the nurses that you gave, if some part of their job becomes automated, they're expected to usually deal with more patients, and
if the automation gives them more time.
Yeah. But inevitably, like when automation comes to your job, you're just expected to do more work, and in the end, your workload kind of remains the same as it was before.
Well,
right?
They worry that that's what's going to be the case. That doesn't mean that that's going to be the case, right? If the whole system is learning and values that, there might be an opportunity for a different kind of decision making, right?
I feel like it is kind of inevitable that your workload will eventually be the same, right? But usually what happens is the people who benefit most from that are, I guess, shareholders in the company or customers, but it's not really people in between.
Well, so I would say this to you, and we've had this conversation actually in the last couple of weeks, because Schiphol now agreed to go from a short-term project to a longer-term project, and we're working on that. And the people at RoboHouse that do a lot of these kind of negotiations are trying to also understand what Schiphol and KLM expect around those lines. Now, my argument is that our shareholders, our customers, are the future of work, not Schiphol and KLM, if we really want to create change in a system. So yes, Schiphol and KLM are now giving us the money, and we have to give them things, but not necessarily the things that they think they want, right? We're agreeing to work together as a system. So it's not that easy, but there's another way to address that, is to say robotic capabilities and human capabilities, and maybe functional things that you do. For instance, the effect that they have on the meaningfulness of jobs. So we were just visiting a hospital in Rotterdam, and they showed us how they clean all the OR equipment that comes out of an operation room. And part of that job is now being automated. There's a little robot that can go to a washing machine, pick up stuff, and then go down the line to some other stuff. So it kind of does that. What the people are complaining about is loss of autonomy. They're not making choices. And turns out that walking from one station to another is actually something that they like about their job. They like bumping into each other, they like talking to each other. So what are you actually bringing and what are you taking away is not a trivial thing and has to be kind of allowed to be explored. So yes, it's not a simple answer. But I think we're getting to the point where big sectors are willing to consider a different way of doing it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to describe their dream job? Otherwise, I suggest we do one more applause. And then in the planning, we were supposed to go to our third speaker, but I think we can do like a very quick break so you can get a drink, and then we'll continue, just so you have a more focused audience, and because I like small breaks. So you have, I'm going to be strict on the time this time, though, so it's 2 minutes. Okay, so if everyone can take their seat back, I hope you enjoyed your small break, and then we'll continue to our final speaker, which is Wietse. He's already standing here. He is our only speaker that's not from TU Delft, actually. He is from TU Twente, where he studied technology of science, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and it's a bit longer name, but it's a bad branding.
That's the gist of it.
Yeah, this is good.
And I'm a big fan of his podcast, if you don't know it. It's called Pokey. It's on Spotify. It is in Dutch, though. But maybe when AIs can live translate it.
I'm waiting for AI to do the translation for me. So.
Yeah, we'll be there soon, I think. So I'll give the floor to Wietse then.
Thank you. Is it a bit like ringing, or is that me? Yeah, should I move? Maybe do a bit like this? How is it now? This is better, right? No more ringing. Good. Thank you all for being here. I hope there's still some energy, mental energy left, because you told beautiful things, many ideas. I'm going to tell a few stories, and I'll tie them together a bit later, so be patient with me, I would say. So the first story is about me at an airport with a group of 20 people and missing a flight. It was a very strange thing. Not everybody thought we were watching the time. It's the bystander effect. It's a well-known psychological phenomenon, but I was never in that effect. I didn't know it was so strong. 2 weeks after that, I was on a train, while having read about the bystander effect, because a colleague of mine said, "Oh, wow, we were in the bystander effect. That's so cool." And I was like, "Yeah, we missed the flight. It's not cool." But he was excited because he loves ideas. And I was like reading up on the bystander effect and how people die due to the bystander effect because someone drops on the ground, needs help, and nobody helps the person, and then they die. And I was like, no, that's too extreme. 2 weeks later, I'm in a train. I'm sitting there, and in the other part of the train, I hear, "Why is nobody doing anything?" It's a true story. It's crazy. So I was like walking up there, seeing all these people like standing there. I was like, "What's happening?" "Yeah, someone's choking, I think." I was like, "So is someone helping?" "Yeah, no, weird, right?" I'm like, "What the fuck? This is it." I read about this on Wikipedia. Like the night at the airport, so I ran through like, this is a little bit of a hero story, not to do this. It helps with the rest of the story. So I ran up there. There's a woman on the ground. I'm like, "Why is nobody doing this?" I'm like, "Now I should do things." So I do this Heimlich thing I was taught, and she's like, "Puh, puh," and she coughs off this olive, right? Literally being that, it was like blue already. So everybody was like, "Oh, wow, man, you're so good. Luckily you helped." And I'm like, what the fuck were you not doing anything? Strange people. So this might actually be such a situation right now in a bigger sense. And I'm trying to do the Olive thing again, but now about these robotic AI topics. So I am a person who is in the camp of this might be something different happening right now. So you pose this question literally saying like, every generation thinks that they're in a special generation of being like, this is the time the world changes. I actually believe this, and I'm going to try to make that case. The reason I'm trying to making this case is that if that is true, and actually this is quite big what is happening right now, it might be valuable to at least think about that possibility, you know, to be a bit prepared for some type of revolutionary thing happening in a short amount of time where it might disrupt, as Silicon Valley likes to say, society in such a way that we might not even be able to cope with it on a short notice. The way I'm trying to do this for you is that my girlfriend is in mental health. She helps people who are prone to psychosis. And theoretically, one of the descriptions of a psychosis is being out of consensus reality. So this is consensus reality for most of us right now. Otherwise, it would be hard to be on a bus, sit here. There's all these implicit rules, language, the fact that you're looking at me, listening to me. It's all a consensus we have there. Guy is standing here, he's talking, we might as well listen. We're at the university, right? if you get out of this consensus reality, it's not a nice place to be. While some people actually say it's a nice place, it's actually not a nice place necessarily on the long term, because how do you communicate back to that consensus, right? There's philosophers that have written books on how to read their books, because their books were so far out in their ideas that they needed to create like a bridge towards their world with all these new concepts to understand their books. If you ever read Deleuze, Google it, you'll understand that you need a bridge to read some people's ideas. But it might be that some of these people are outside of the consensus, but actually kind of right. And right is a hard word in philosophy, doing me correspondence pragmatically, you know, what are we talking about? But they might be onto something. So what I'm trying to do in the last year, in a more like safe way, say, I'm trying to get out of this consensus reality and try to live in a reality where this whole AI robotics thing is actually happening this fast. So I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm a believer now, right? And I'm not saying this necessarily cynically. Like, what if this stuff is really developing as fast as it is? What if you can really converse with another entity, like an alien that has landed through a computer? Everybody's like looking up, like, no aliens, right? And then they're through your phone, into your ears, they're there, born in technology. The aliens are coming from the inside, right? Am I getting you into outside of the consensus reality already? I have friends who call me like, you're the guy at the train station screaming at everybody. I'm like, for now I am, and maybe it's important. And I'm trying to get back, I'm trying to be in two worlds at the same time. Because one of my favorite professors always said at the end of a presentation, people hated him for it, but I think he was right. He always said like, so what? Like any PhD defense, so what? And what he meant by that is, what happens if people don't know this? What happens if people don't see this? What happens if people don't believe this? So what? What are you all about, right? So the so what for me is that if this stuff is going fast, and if this affects a lot of people at the same time, there is some responsibility somewhere for people to say, there's a person there choking on the ground, like help, or maybe help yourself, or if you're waiting for your colleagues to say like, the thing we're developing here right now, maybe we shouldn't. Like if you're always waiting for that, no, but it should be you, right? So the question I have for you, all of you, is how do you feel about all of this? Because I talk to people and they're like, dude, we've been through 2 waves of automation already. We figured it out. New jobs. Everybody will be a creator. Like I'm saying this cynically because I really don't necessarily believe that this is the case this time. But we've been through this already. We've managed in a way. We'll manage again. That's one stance you could take. Or you could say, well, this is actually great. Dude, like imagine like synthetic friends, you know. You could like be on the back of a fake robot horse onto the mountain, you know. Maybe we could fly. Like what are you onto? Like, you know, this is utopia. It's finally happening. And then there's the people in the middle who are like, So my question to you is, where are you currently? And if you're at the opposite of where I am, even better.
Yeah, so let's start again with a bit of an applause. Thank you very much for the cool talk. Very enthusiastic. I'm sure someone has an opinion about what was just said. So if you just raise your hand, I'll speed walk over to you. To hand over the mic. Because when talking with people, oh yes, I already see someone.
I honestly think it's really scary. I feel like our morals and our rules and regulations are not up to date enough to deal with all the development in AI that is currently happening.
Great points.
Thank you.
Yes, so personally I feel all of the 3 words, like impressed, overwhelmed, and enthusiastic, because I'm also a master robotics student. I really like automation, and I like seeing things happening for the sake of technology. The last time, though, this happened, we had the atomic bombs, so
Yeah. What a cool fireworks was that, right?
So from one hand, I'm really excited about it, but from the other, I think that we should. Yeah, I think that humans are not the best type of species to leave them alone to play with such stuff without some form of regulation or conversation.
Adult supervision.
Thanks. Yeah.
I'm purposely not like reacting to everything because I just want to hear you talk. If that's okay.
I think personally I am in the phase of accepting the reality because I was a believer of engineering before, and I truly believe that engineering can really change people's life, make people's life better. And after I attend a course called the Anthropology of Technology and Science, and the professor told me that to reflect on eulogy. It's like try to think people want to change their DNA to make their children better or something, and reflect on AI or some surveillance system. And I feel like it's when we try to decide something, we did not really realize that how they kind of destroy another part of our life. So I wasn't questioning, but now I feel like maybe if I keep questioning this, it's more like I am destroying the ladder I am climbing. So it's not good for mental health, so I choose to accept the reality.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. The ladder is visual. I see that ladder now. Yes.
Thank you all so much for sharing. Oh, one more.
I think in your analogy, if there's a person who's going to save the lady choking on the olive, it's going to have to be, the elected officials of the countries. So I think if you're talking about waves of automation or the effect they can have on your jobs, the last time that happened was in the 80s, where a lot of factory work all over the world went to China, and that was, I think, consciously decided upon by the various officials of the countries then. And so it'll be the same now, how these technologies are used.
But are they really the right people to make that decision?
No.
Is there anyone that's not impressed with technology? A lot of people like...
Valid opinion, by the way, to be not impressed. It might be true, really. I'm not being cynical. It might be true. It might be mostly hype.
Once again, safe space. You can share. Yeah.
I am kind of enthusiastic. And the reason is that few years before I was thinking that about solving the human problems in more philosophical way. I was thinking how it could be solved. There are many problems which are common to many people. And so there are many people in the world who are similar in personality and they are facing similar kind of problem. And some of them have already solved those problems and others did not. And if somehow technology can connect all of them and can provide the solution from the person who already solved with the same personality to the other people, then all the people who comes from the same kind of mindset or personality, they will be uplifted in terms of their life progress or life journey. And that was one thing. That's why I'm enthusiastic. That's possible because of AI right now. And the second thing, I also had a thought that people can just learn from their past. Like we are making a lot of mistakes over the years and we are repeating also mistakes because we are forgetting about that. So if we remember what actually happened few years before in that context and and what solution we suggested to ourselves few years before, that if it repeats, I will do this or that, then we can self-help. And day before yesterday, I was listening from Sam Altman interview, and he was saying that he is already working on this idea in exploratory phase, that there is going to be AI machine which will be recording your life journey, what you are saying, how you are making decision based on your consent, of course, when you want it to record. And then it will do some analysis on that, and in future it will just, if you are going to make the same mistake, it will autocorrect, it will give you suggestions. So when it comes to self-development, I see that people are really not going to make repeated mistakes. If we bring this kind of technology before we bring other commercial implementation of AI, which is going to destroy a lot of part of our society. So it's really the race how quickly we can implement these good use cases of AI or technology compared to the other commercial, which is going to have bad impact on us. So it's a race between good and bad, and it depends on people how they proceed.
Thank you. If it's okay if I move on to the next slide, just to keep, like, you can always just ask the same question a bit later and ignore the slides. For me, it's very important when I talk to people that are not necessarily convinced of this urgency. I feel an urgency right now. It's also because I'm trying to get into this mindset of these things really happening at this fast time, and it makes me feel anxious. It makes me feel almost want to go on the street and be to people like, have you seen this? You know, like this Neil deGrasse Tyson meme, like, have you seen this? Because it's really, I'm personally in technology. In my company, I work with AI. We're currently digitalizing 5,000 hours of Buddhist monastery, 50 years of a Buddhist teacher who is deceased. And now I'm having discussion with monks of like, what are we reincarnating in a way, this Buddhist monk? And should we? No, we shouldn't. Why shouldn't we? So these discussions are already happening. They're real. This is, for me, this is not some type of future scenario. Like these things, like the way these models are able to, in a way, impersonate this deceased monk is frightening in a way. And exciting, because he had great ideas. So you're like, yay, nay, it's really hard. And what I'm curious about as a question is, if you're already in a state of urgency, like, are we already there? If so, how do we make more people aware of this urgency? Because I think that would be needed. There's a little reality outside of the consensus reality, and the consensus reality needs to become this little reality, you know? It needs to be widespread. And if no, when for you do we cross that line? The answer might also be that line doesn't exist. I'm okay with that. But let's say there is a line where you would say, okay, this would freak me out, you know? Like I've asked my mother, like if a robot would come walking into the room, play the violin, do a pancake, you know, and it's for sale for this amount of money there and there, she's like, I've seen it as a movie, you know? I'm not that like, does it need a gun? Like when do things start crossing lines? Maybe you, because you're already... Is it the same question? No, it's okay.
It's fairly similar in a sense that is, are we solving, or it's about the real problems. So I think there, in many ways, there are urgent real problems for a long time, and I think AI is, in a sense, amplifying them to an extreme amount that hopefully more people actually see it. So by seeing, very crazy forms of exploitation, or making everything about numbers, kind of quantifying everything, by making it so extreme that it becomes more visible, that might be kind of the urgency and that we're just amplifying. But I think it's kind of already there, the basic problems that I don't think AI is actually that helpful in many ways, are there, like in society, how do we build trustful societies, etc. That I think AI is just putting a spotlight how bad we are, maybe in some sense at that right now. And hopefully people wake up to that. I'm not sure if I'm very...
you would say for you there was already urgency before AI?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
No, and kind of, it's fake or not fake problems, but it's a lot of problems that were there in other forms, but kind of were there before.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do I need it?
Yeah,
I would
you have a
say
mic.
it's misplaced. The real urgency is climate change. So what if technology going to change or not change? Climate change is real. So why are we deflecting? Again, if these issues can actually help us with climate change, maybe then they're good. Right?
Yeah, this is like I need to get into a pseudo state of psychosis to see this problem, where you're like you can look at the whole weather system and see that there's a problem right now. Yeah, interesting. And this might actually help.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I would say we are in a state of urgency. What you see a lot is that people see AI as somehow more objective, even though AI is just as biased as our society is, and then it becomes an excuse because people don't understand anymore to just perpetuate that bias.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see one more hands.
So I see AI just as any other technological tool. It's like a knife in our house. If we can use knife to cut our vegetables, then it's good. And if we use it in a wrong way and cut our finger, then it's bad. So it's just a tool, and whatever bad we are seeing, that's coming from people itself. So first thing which as I already said, that if we can use technology to change people first or quickly, and then all the developments go around, then there is going to be minimum or less bad impact of technology, because it's all about how we use it. So we as a user are end responsible for that, and that's why if we can somehow change the end user mindset towards and make them more responsible and towards society and themselves, and that could be accomplished via technology for sure. But if we can accomplish it before we harm using AI, then only it will be efficient. Because of course AI is going to create some harm also and a lot of good also, and it really depends which part of that get momentum or acceleration first. So that's how I see it.
Thank you. So again, the reason I'm also not reacting is because then it would take 4 hours. But there's a part I skipped over, is my argumentation on why it's different now. What I've actually seen happen a few times in real life, you can test it at home. If you pick up a rock and you throw it with a certain speed at someone, like slowly, it hits them and they're like, please don't throw rocks at me, it's not nice, but okay. And if you then change the speed of that rock, at a certain moment it becomes something else, really like a weapon, And if you get really fast, it might become a bullet. Still the same rock, just change speed. And whenever someone says to me like, yeah, but like we've been to these phases of automation, history is filled with revolutions, and we adapt. And then I look at biological systems and I'm like, there's all these limits in these systems. That's interesting. Like, it doesn't seem as if biology is some type of infinite thing. The earth is not infinite. The human body is not infinite. Human life is not infinite. There's limits everywhere, except for human adaptability. Makes me a bit suspicious of that idea, that we are limitless in our adaptability. Of course, you can talk about cyborgs, we can do neural implants, we can fuse with the AIs. Okay, then we might be limitless. But I think as a society, as individuals, as human beings, there's limits of what we are capable of getting used to in a certain amount of time. That's not a super crazy thing to say, right? I'm not at the train station screaming yet. I'm just saying that we need some time to adjust. And I'm seeing this thing going very, 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 very fast. Going from shitty text to kind of nice music in 1 year. I'm not saying, therefore, 1 year we're on Mars with space stations and everything. That's not how it works, I get it. But still, there is a fast, rapid change going on, and it seems to be accelerating a bit at least. Might plateau for 20 years, might happen, happened in the past, but still, there's speed. So at a certain moment, you might start talking about a different thing then. Like, as a philosopher, I'm always thinking about categories, right? Famous thing is to make a category mistake. You think something is a fruit, but actually it's a vehicle. So therefore, those things doesn't make sense anymore. But with technology, technology itself might actually become a new thing. You know, it needs a new word. Philosophers love making new words, you know. We are famous for that. But sometimes there's a reason to make a new word, because the association with the old word makes things invisible now. If you think a knife is the same as AI, I'm not attacking you, because the technology is just a tool. Narrative is big, it's strong, and it works in many cases. But I would say here, it might make you blind to certain things, because the knife doesn't talk back. The AI might talk back. It might even have some type of agenda. I'm not talking about like a little group of people making like little secret plans. No, there might be things in there, put in there, just by chance, by data set, by who picked what data set, that it actually, in a way, shapes you back. And you're already saying, like, maybe we should shape it in a way that's good for people, right? But who's doing the shaping? Who's deciding on where to shape, you know? It's political questions. They're big. And Sam Altman, I think he's not an evil guy. I think he actually believes that he is doing the right thing. And I'm not saying he's not, but there's a lot of naivety in a way there, scary naivety for me, where I'm like, do we even know what we want? Like, let's say the AI is like, there's a blinking cursor in our screen, and the AI is like, give me the system prompt. Just tell me how to design humanity into a perfect system, you know? Tell me, I will do it for you. I'll create the drones, I'll give everybody a personal assistant, I'll talk to them for hours every day to make them perfect people. Who is allowed to fill in the prompt? If it's a single person, we don't have a democracy anymore, right? So it's tricky. It's really, really, really tricky. And I think that what I'm proposing is that AI as a technology should be treated as something new that has different qualities than the knife that went before, or the razors, or whatever. And that doesn't make it like a wholly different thing, but we need to sit down, look at it, and be like, interesting. Technology used to be an object we took, and then we put it away again. Now it might become more of like a subject. We might talk to it, might become a friend, a lover. This is not that far away. Like, people might fall in love with a synthetic friend, and this might happen within 12 months. There might be people in love already. People are in love with dead puppets. I'm not making fun of these people. They are allowed to. That might be actually helpful to them. But if this thing starts talking back in a nice voice, why not be a friend? And then if you say it's a tool, you know, that might be dangerous. Do tools have rights? You know, can we just turn it off? Who has that button? So what I'm saying here is, for all of you, there might be a phase change, just as water, you know, turns into ice, turns into gas, same molecules, different speed, whole different thing. I throw a block of ice at you, problems, you know? Liquid water, not so much. Maybe in a balloon fight, not so much, right? Same molecules. So all I'm saying is you might be throwing technology at people that might be in a different phase now, so it really will do different things to a group of people. I think this is interesting. This is also interesting. I think, if that's okay, it would be good for us, three of us, to talk. Is that okay? Because these questions are just more and more questions, and maybe it's time. Yeah? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone so much for participating. We now have time for a bit more open discussion with all the speakers. So I would like to invite you to sit over here. I'll put... Wiets will be sitting down here, but he will also be part of the discussion.
I just don't like being on camera, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
They'll clone my face, you know. I am in a different state of mind than most of you right now.
He's out of the narrative.
Yes,
nice try.
Consensus reality, this is nice.
Okay, so the floor is open. If there are any questions that people have based on the interesting talks that we've heard. that you would like to ask to any of our speakers, all of them, so they can discuss amongst each other? Yes.
So thank you all for the presentations. It's really interesting. My question is, we are at a university. We are being taught maybe the future of engineering, I don't know. But what would you like to see in our curriculum to make us more aware of the problems with automating jobs or anything like that? Is there anything missing, do you think? Or do you know anything about our curriculum at all? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Start?
I think I do know a little bit about the curriculum, which is that there are the ethics classes. Who's taken an ethics class here at Delft? Yeah. So in the bachelor's, you are required to take one, and then in the master's, there's been some development with some master's programs have you do ethics. Now, one of the troubles is that then ethics is sort of put in a class that is just 6 weeks and you do your thing and that's it and that's all you have to do. And on my project, for example, I like to give you examples because I work at the university as a PhD and I understand a lot about the complications of this in a research situation. In my project, what happened is that I was also working alongside roboticists, and then I'm the ethics person. It was also like being tacked on at the end. It wasn't in the project description. It was like, we're going to do all this and then ethics over here. And Deborah, I'm sure you know about, because this is really innovative work of merging collaboration together, and I think that's kind of what we need. It's like ethics can't be off to the side. Philosophical questions can't be off to the side. It has to be integrated through the project as a whole. It can't just be like a checkbox, which is like an actual like ethics. We did our ethics thing. This is like a literal line on a to-do list. And so I don't know if you could speak to that. I really lived out the challenges of trying to integrate ethics into these research projects, but I think the frame is definitely doing innovative work there.
I agree. I think Delft is actually unique in intention for ethics in an engineering school, and it's one of the things I appreciate. The consortium that I showed you that we have, ethics is a part of it. We think about values and value frameworks. I worry sometimes about using that too lightly, because I think the Nazis also did value-based design or value-based research. And so we have to think about then whose values and how do we do that. But I think the fact that we can't just be a university or just research and the world. We're in the age of research. So those walls are breaking and they should break even more. And I think paying attention more to relationships, paying attention to how things happen in the real world, having to do them in the real world, is important. And the other real important thing is to allow art to be more part of all paradigms. Whenever there's a paradigm shift, usually it's the artists that experiment the most and try to express things in different ways and perform things in different ways. And if you see even just ChatGPT, who is doing the wackiest things with ChatGPT? It's usually the artists. So I feel like we have to embrace that a lot.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I was also still thinking about this. So I started university when I was 30. I did software development for 10 years, and I got worried. So I thought I need to be a philosopher, or at least think about these things more critically. And then I got quite paralyzed. I was like one of the first stories in the first year is about how when you have a well in the middle of your village, and people go to that well to get water, they also talk to each other and see if they're sick and ask how they're doing. But if everybody gets their own water at home, people don't talk to each other anymore. They talk in different ways, but this well has an effect, the removal of the well. So these second order effects, once you get aware of them, I was like, there must be second order effects everywhere, All the things I've been building had these second order effects. So I got paralyzed because I was like, this is too much. It took me 4 years to get out of this paralysis in a way. But then I got back. Now I'm here. I'm standing here. I have a company again. I'm building software for monks. I'm trying. What I'm trying to say here is that maybe part of the curriculum should also be indeed integrating ethics And also helping people like, okay, what to do when you're aware of the second order effects of the technologies you're building, and how not to be paralyzed by it and still do something for society course. Because I think that this is in a way the second step we should take when people are made aware of these things during anthropology class or ethics class, integration, talking about them, and okay, what do we do now? Because we still want to do things.
Yeah. And I think research is a very active process. Everything. So the notion of action research, of acting in the world and seeing the change. So how not to be passive. And then it's very easy. First thing you shouldn't be passive about is climate change.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. But also just, maybe we'll come back to that, but also just what you're saying about and as somebody who's works in ethics at the university, it's, you're saying like the second order effects, and there's third order, and there's this wonderful complex systems thinker, Nora Bateson, and she talks about it's like the runaway effects. You can't understand all the effects. And I think sometimes what happens, and you may have experienced this in your ethics classes, a sense of, I don't know, like just like a little bit like of a wah, like, because I think sometimes what philosophers of technology end up doing is they're trying to be so useful and give so many answers that are very clear, that then it's like they're saying, well, there's this effect and this effect and this effect, and it's like the effects keep rolling, and there needs to be, I think, clarity, but then also a sense, this like deeper movement of, can we let go of control a little bit as well? I mean, that's sort of, maybe that's a bit abstract, but I think ethics can be, you can have this clarity and clear framework, but also we need to acknowledge that maybe there's a different way of thinking that we need to embody in our research.
Thank you. Thanks for all the great answers. I really enjoyed like the ethics course that we actually had in our Master Robotics, but I do recognize that it's for a lot of like technical students. Can be a bit uncomfortable or something sometimes because it's so different from all the courses that we have. There's like no arguing when you're following statics as a course. It's just like facts and stuff. So I guess that's also a bit part of why people often see it as a checkbox thing. It's like, oh, this is apparently part of it. We have a course on it, but it's not something that's very natural in our curriculum. But I guess that's why it's good that we do events like this. And I see a lot of robotics people here. So it's definitely something that we value, if I interpret that correctly. I saw a hand over there, so I guess that's another question.
Yes, the last thing you said about maybe we should let go of all the moral frameworks and look at things differently. Where do you even start with that?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give an answer which is like, I think, and I do think there is maybe some specialness about the time, and humans and technology, we're co-creating each other. And right now, with a lot of the automation of digital devices we use, there's this, we want to be able to predict everything. We want, and predictions are thrust upon us, and we take them up readily. It's like, I have this image where it's like you have, you're just about to take the next step, and the ground is put underneath your foot, like by a company or a technology, the recommendation things on YouTube or you're shopping or something like this. It's like you're doing this and it's just put right underneath you. There's so much prediction that we live with in our technology entanglements and our digital entanglements. And I think one of the answers, maybe there's lots of answers, but one of the answers is like meditation. Meditation and finding some stillness and putting away your technology for bits of pieces of the day. And I really, I mean that. Like, I was thinking a lot about like opting in and opting out. We don't always consciously opt into the technologies we use. It's just sort of like we're incrementally adopting them. And so it takes real conscious effort to opt out of the technologies we use. And I think once we opt out and just kind of put our phones away for a little bit and maybe go for a walk in a park, we can start to slow down a little bit and release this obsession with control and prediction. And we can allow for, that means it's like a muscle, this ability to pay attention and just, I call it creative loitering, like just going for a walk and seeing what happens. And the more we do this, the more we're able to do it. And what we're doing is we're letting go of control a little bit. Like just what should you do? Go for a walk and do not have a destination, maybe just have a time frame if you feel like it. And turn left or right when you get there. And then do that again. And I think the more you do that, the more you open yourself up to spontaneity and things you can't predict. It's a personal practice as well as other things, yeah.
Yeah, I think you want to reply.
That does sound really good, but how does that translate to like a society-wide? How would you design a society that uses that? Or how would you change our society?
Yeah, definitely. So what I'm describing is, I just said, like a personal practice. I think the more that we do this like as a muscle, is something we experience and keep practicing at, the better we're able to do it. And that can translate into the work we do, into the voting habits we have. It can have an effect. But also, from the other end of things, at the other end of things, there's a wonderful researcher at Utrecht, and his name is Joost Vervoort, and he was just at this festival that Studium Generale just put on, and he talks about imagination infrastructures and mystery. He's just starting to work on mystery infrastructures. So what sort of things can we have in place in a culture and a society that leave time for these sorts of wandering? What sort of things do we need to have in place? Maybe that's, it could be, it's something even like long holiday policies. Like there are policies in place that can sort of protect people's maybe time or allow them sort of infrastructures in place that can encourage people to take up this time and rest more, be more still.
I would say, as someone who's just been here for a year and a half, coming from the US, where I lived for 40 years, and before that in Israel, Dutch are actually surprisingly relaxed and very protective of work-life balance. I can't get any answer from anyone in email over on the weekend. And vacation time is really important. And if you have a team and everyone takes the other day off, then it's really hard to find people together. And I find that's interesting. But the boundary that I am interested in, and I've seen a big change over my lifetime, is 20 years ago, if you were an academic, you should not bring any politics into your work. You should not bring any activism into your work. And even if it's snuck in because you have a personal story, maybe you did that. But today, I don't think you could be an artist and not be socially responsible. I don't think you should be a professor and not be socially responsible. Climate change. But no, I'm saying, the activism part of using your work, your academia, to do active life in the world is more available, and it's a must. It's urgent. So I feel that's a good thing.
Thank you very much for sharing all the thoughts and inspirational talks. Looking at the time, I suggest that we close it off. I let it go a bit over time because I thought it was very interesting. And maybe I'm just a shitty moderator. That could also be the case.
No.
Oh, thank you. Anyways, I would like to ask the speakers if they have any final statement or reflection that they want to share. And then we'll close it off. So if anyone has...
Yeah, I was just thinking that I remember when I did, 10 plus years of engineering, right? Then I started meeting a lot of philosophers. And at first, I was a bit put off because I want to work, I want to build things, make the world a better place. And now I feel paralyzed, and you're making it all more complex for me now. And where's all the joy in engineering? I'm not blaming anybody. I call myself a philosopher now, so now I'm there. But I just want to say that it sounds so cheesy, but if you keep going through that, Like, most of you here don't want to destroy the world. I really believe. Like, nobody of here was convincing us, like, be a good person, stop killing people. Like, most people of you are good people, you want to create a better world. So most people who are in robotics or in any form of engineering just like making cool technology, and if people are happy with it, that's great, you know? So we're not here to take that away from you. I'm even saying that you could do that thing informed with second, maybe third, I don't know, fourth order effects, they're big, but like, and still have this, yeah, like almost like childlike, I mean in the most positive sense, energy to build that world like a Lego, you know, well informed, unparalyzed, but it will take time. So I'm saying it's worth it to go into these hard topics, hard ideas, be a bit paralyzed for a while, keep going. Because that will make you like a more ethical applied engineer. In the end, you can still build that world you wanted to build at the beginning. It's really true.
I don't know. That's an interesting optimism. I feel like it's good to do that on a close level, on a larger. When you look around, I think you need to be angry at the kind of shitty world that you were handed over by your previous generation. Shorter life expectancy, worse places to live, not clear what's going to happen. And I think that you can use this kind of, and maybe using your kind of metaphor of kind of oscillating between states, to oscillate between anger and curiosity is probably something that can really move you forward, or move us forward.
Okay, and let me just tie those together.
Good luck.
I'm thinking of two things, and I've dropped so many names tonight. I really didn't mean to do that. But there's a poet, David White, and he is wonderful. And his latest book is called Constellations. And he takes words that we normally think are bad, and he reimagines them. And one of them's anger. And he says that anger, it's indicative, it's a sign that some boundary's been crossed. It's an invitation to say, okay, what has happened here? Where do I feel violated? Where do I feel like something that I thought was right has been crossed over on? And so if you do feel the anger, we can, see, wrapping together, watch this. If we do feel anger, why don't we have an invitation towards curiosity there? Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. On that note, I would like to close off the session. We would like to thank the speakers very much. Jelle spent all afternoon searching for the perfect... Yeah, I'm going to give them right now. I'll just take them out. The perfect chocolate clock.
Oh, thank you so much.
I think he found them.
It's perfect.
But we also want to thank you very much and the people watching the recording, of course. Let's give one last round of applause for everyone.